and obviously not getting the job done, but really it just came up short. And reason I'm giving Dabo Swinney a shout out is because he won 2 national championships with Clemson, so it's not like, hey, we're gonna fire him now all of a sudden just because the past couple of seasons hasn't gone his way. But overall, looking at Clemson, it might be time to say, hey, the dynasty is gone, I think. So shout out to Florida State, shout out to Jordan Travis. I mean, they got the job done, and basically Florida State right now is a top 4 team in the country, no doubt about it. They'll probably be number 3 or number 2 by the end of the year if they win out. If they win out, Florida State will definitely be in the college football playoff. So shout out to Florida State getting the huge win in Clemson. What a time. And then we got Oklahoma versus Cincinnati. Oklahoma 14-point favorites. They won by 14. And it was all, Cincinnati had the opportunities. Emory Jones threw key 2 interceptions. And that was really the difference maker right here. In Oklahoma, their quarterback, Dalen Gabriel, 322 yards passing and a touchdown. And it was all Oklahoma since, Cincinnati just didn't have that mojo, really. And even though it was in Cincy, Oklahoma got the job done. But same thing, Oklahoma, they're a big program, big name, right? But I just think recently they've just been kind of overhyped. Oklahoma, to me, is kind of like similar to a Michigan. A big-time program, great, they bring in great revenue overall. But, I just think for college football-wise, they just haven't been the same as once they were before in the past. So that's the difference between Michigan and Oklahoma. It's just like they just big names. But, I think this year the difference between Michigan and Ohio State is going to probably win out the Big Ten. Either them or Penn State between the two. So I can't wait to see that. But shout out to Oklahoma, getting a big win in Cincinnati. What a time. And then we got Utah beating UCLA. I picked UCLA with the upset. I thought Cam Rising not back yet. That'd be the difference. But Utah, man, they're legit. And it starts with their defense, and that's what's really winning them games. Defense is winning Utah games. Nate Johnson, he's the backup right now. He had 117 yards passing and a touchdown. You got Jalen Glover. He had 86 yards rushing for Utah, and they won in a close one, 14-7. I thought for sure this would go with the over. I thought, it'd go over 52.5. I thought this would be a high-scoring game, but really it was a defensive battle. And what we know about Utah is they have a legit defense. I would say a top 10 defense in the country. They can compete against anybody. I just think, when is Cam Rising going to come back? Their star quarterback. They need somebody like Cam, because without him, I think, it's going to be a little bit of a long season. I think they might lose a big, crucial game unless Cam Rising eventually comes back, but huge win in Utah. And then we got Ole Miss versus Bama. This was an easy pick for me. I picked Bama. Some of the experts were going with the upset. Ole Miss, no way. Jose, Bama at home. They normally play great at home, and they won 24-10. Jalen Milroe, he had 225 yards passing, a touchdown, and a pick. He had that huge touchdown late. I just think it was all Bama here. And what we know about Bama is that they're going to do what Bama does. They typically play great defense, even though against Texas, a couple weeks ago they didn't. But I think Bama is always in the conversation. If they just had that one loss to Texas and they win out and they win the SEC and beat Georgia in the SEC championship, you can bet everything that Alabama will be in the college football playoff, even with one loss. They deserve it. Coach Nick Saban, what a dynasty in Alabama. And it's just funny, when Nick Saban loses a game, everybody's like, oh, is that the end of the dynasty for Alabama? It's just so funny, the narrative, dude, because it's a big deal, right? Because Alabama typically wins every single game. So when they lose a big game like they did to Texas, it was like, oh, this is it. It's over for Bama. No, it's not. It's not over. Bama could still win out in the SEC. They could still beat Georgia in the SEC championship and arguably go to the college football playoff and be like a number 2 or 3 seed in the college football playoff. So Alabama still has a great shot to make the college football playoff. So I can't wait. Shout out to Alabama getting the big win. And then we got Duke versus UConn. It was all Duke. I picked Duke at 21.5. And Duke really is legit this year. They beat Clemson opening day. They killed UConn 41-7. Riley Leonard, 248 yards passing and a touchdown. Also a rushing touchdown. Jordan Moore, 86 yards receiving and a touchdown. But Duke is legit, and Notre Dame's going to be tested again next week at Duke. This is going to be a primetime game. I can't wait to see how that develops. But, obviously, if Duke ends up winning out and they win the ACC, championship, they won't get into the college football playoff. Who would have thought that? Nobody ever would have thought that, obviously, unless you play for Duke. Nobody in history would have thought Duke Blue Devils football would go to the college football playoff. But if they end up winning out their whole schedule and win the ACC championship, dude, I'm telling you, they will definitely get in the college football playoff. But that's a long shot. It really is. But they're playing Notre Dame next week. And like I said, Notre Dame, they have to win out to even get a consideration to get a college football playoff spot. So, long college football season. But hats off to Duke getting the job done. I mean, to shitty UConn, though, a cupcake team. And then we got Arkansas versus LSU. I picked Arkansas with the upset. I thought I was right. And really, LSU won in a very close game, 34-31. And it was just because of Jaden Daniels, their quarterback, 320 yards passing with 4 touchdowns. He did have an interception, but Daniels, he's their key guy. He's a senior. He's been there for a while. Great veteran quarterback, and he solely won in this game. He really did. And then Brian Thomas Jr., 133 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns for LSU. In Arkansas, they were right there. And, KJ Jefferson, 3 touchdowns, and he had 2 picks, which one of the picks was a dumb throw. But I'm looking overall and saying, hey, big win for Coach Brian Kelly, in LSU. Even though I wanted to see Brian Kelly fail, I feel like, Brian Kelly deep down wants to see Notre Dame lose, and he was probably, tuning in last night to the Ohio State Notre Dame game, but, that's that. Brian Kelly moved on, but huge win by Brian Kelly. Even with Coach Kelly and LSU, if they end up winning out and Florida State ends up winning out, LSU could even get in the college football playoff with 1 loss. But it's a long season. They still got to play Alabama, so I can't wait. But huge win by LSU Tigers. And then we got UAB versus Georgia. Georgia got the job done. Another cupcake team. Really it was closer than what I expected. Back their quarterback, 338 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. Brock Bowers, their star tight end, he had 121 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. It was all Georgia, but I just noticed Georgia, they haven't been winning as much as we thought they would to be the number 1 team in the country, right? Even though they'll probably still be number 1, Georgia has to win the SEC championship. And we have to realize Coach Kirby Smart, he's looking to 3-peat as a national champion, dude. He already won back-to-back, which is crazy, right? Like, dude, if they win 3 in a row, I don't think they will. I just think Georgia this year doesn't have as good as the team as they did the past couple years when they did win it. But, Georgia won, big win by Georgia. And then we got Texas versus Baylor. It was all Texas, 38-6. We got Quinn Edwards. He had 293 yards passing and a touchdown. Jonathan Brooks, 106 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Texas is legit. Like I said, Texas, if this was a college football playoff right now, they would be in. Well-deserved. Texas, like I said, college football is better when Texas football is at its best. And right now, Texas football looks like, hey, we can make a run here. We can win it all right now. They really can. I think this year in college football, this has really been the biggest year where it's just like wide open, where it's just like anybody could really win the national championship this year. Whereas some years it's like, it's either going to be Georgia, Alabama, or Ohio State. But this year it's just wide open right now. It really is. So, hats off to Texas. And then we got Iowa versus Penn State. I picked Penn State at 15. I took the 15, and I was right. Drew Allar, he had 4 touchdowns, 166 yards passing, 31-0. In Penn State, like I said, I think on eye test, they're the best Big Ten team in the country right now. I think they're even better than Ohio State right now. If that game alone is going to be huge. Penn State versus Ohio State, I think that's the biggest Big Ten matchup all year. Bigger than Michigan and Ohio State. I just think Michigan's overrated this year. I really do. But huge win by Penn State. They are the best team right now in the Big Ten, in my opinion. And then we got USC versus Arizona State. USC was 34.5-point favorites, and they only won by 2 touchdowns. And really, USC does not have a good defense. We know what their offense is about. We know what Caleb Williams is about. He probably win Heisman this year. He probably will be a number 1 overall pick next year in the 2024 NFL Draft. He had 322 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. It was just all USC right here. And Caleb Williams is that guy. What's even crazier is he could opt out and come back next year, but he's never going to do that. He's not going to fumble the bag. So shout out to USC. USC will play Notre Dame in a couple weeks. Another huge game. But what a time, man. What a college football week 4, man. This was some huge games. But like I said, going back to my Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they came up short yet again. And really, they should have won this game. Even Ohio State fans, they knew they should have lost this game. That's how many chances Notre Dame had to win this game, dude. We had more than 3 opportunities to ice this game. I would say like 5 or 6 times to ice the game, and every time we came up short. So I think it's a learning curve for head coach Marcus Freeman. It's not the end of Notre Dame. Absolutely not. It came down to one play. like either play, if Ohio State came up short, what would they have said about Ohio State? Ohio State would still be a top 10 team right now if Ohio State would have lost this game. So I think overall, Notre Dame, they have to get a little lucky. They have to win out, obviously, and they have to have some, teams go the opposite way. If Notre Dame wants to get into the college football playoff, they're going to get in by winning out and getting into that 4 seed. That's really the only way they're going to get in. And they're probably going to play at Georgia or Ohio State. I'd love to see the Ohio State rematch in the college football playoff. That'd be amazing, right? Notre Dame wins out convincingly their whole schedule, and they just dominate every team. And then we get to the college football playoff and play Ohio State rematch. That would be a dream come true. But what a time, man. It really does suck. But hats off to Ohio State. Hats off to Oregon. College football, baby. It's the Clouded with Cavs show. Let's go!